first game we're going to talk about this weekend, Clare against Limerick. Probably the rivalry in terms of entertaining matches in the GA at the moment. And would that extend to goal codes?
Yeah, no, I think so, yeah. The 3 games last year were 3 epics. I was down at the last Munster game and I was watched the other 2 games, obviously. Sure, there was nothing between them in normal time in those 3 games. And Limerick, or Clare, I should say Clare, literally went toe-to-toe with them. There were 3 of the better games, I'd say, last year. And this is a real bitter rivalry in the sense that it spills over into management teams as well. If you look at the Limerick management team, Alan Cunningham is involved there. His son Aaron had been playing with Clare when he was involved with Limerick against them. If you look at it from a Clare point of view, James Moore, brother of Niall and Ollie, is involved as a coach under Brian Lohan. It's Adrian O'Brien, isn't it? Shane O'Brien's dad. He's obviously, he's got Limerick links there as well. The ability for that to spill over because they're so close, I think that adds even more kind of intrigue to it. I don't know. I could be expecting about 20,000 nearly at this game. Genuinely, I think there's a massive thirst for it there. I was chatting to Niall during the week, and he said he was expecting a humdinger. Said he was expecting a fair bit of spice in it too. And I'd be surprised if there wasn't, because Brian Lohan's teams generally do bring that, particularly against Limerick. And I'd say it'll be wired for it. And I think it's the second round of the league. We can't read too much into it, but I think I'll be expecting a cracker of the game.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many changes both teams are going to make, because Limerick were much changed last week, and obviously they made switches as the game went on, taking off the likes of Grode Hegarty and Declan Hannon and so on. Last week, Brian Lohan, he gave Adam Hogan, Jack Kerwin and Brandon O'Connell their first league matches at cornerback, midfield and wing-back. David Conroy, he came back for the first time in 4 years to play a game, and Grode O'Grady and Keith Smith, they made their league debuts from the bench. So maybe they both teams will play more frontliners, more regular starters, I suppose, in this game. But we might have the atmosphere, we might have 20,000 there, but we might end up having a huge amount of shadow boxing at the same time.
Yeah, I from a Clare point of view, I don't know how much they'd be shadow boxing, to be honest with you. I don't know if that's their style, and I think particularly if Clare are off it physically by a couple of percent, they could struggle. They're look at the brilliant games they played last year. It was real on the edge stuff. Real kind of, that's the way Brian Lohan's teams generally play, is quite on the edge. He played on the edge as a player himself. We mightn't have, all the personnel that we're going to see when they clash in Munster, but I still think it'd be interesting. Would you have Tony Kelly back in their 26 to bring in and potentially, and try and tip them over the line? Expect Declan Hannon to play a bit longer, if providing that finger injury is okay. Same with Grode Hegarty, be expecting to play a bit longer. You're expecting Keane Lynch to play a bit longer too. There might be an element of shadow boxing to it in terms of personnel, but I don't think there'll be too much shadow boxing on the pitch.
Yeah, in general, once you're on a hurling pitch and playing a match, that's where the shadow boxing ends.
Goes out the way. It really does. No matter what, you played in games more than I have as well, where you might be thinking, oh, this is only first round of a league or second round of a league. It's all bets are off once you cross the line, and once a lad is kind of snarling at you and you're snarling at him, and it's a lad that you know pretty well, that you probably went to college with, and you're just the competitor comes out in everyone. You don't want to be beaten by anybody on any day.
It's mad how thick you get on the field, isn't it? And the snarling and the dumping and all that kind of stuff. And you think about it afterwards, you're like, geez, you kind of lost it there for a little while. Aidan McCarthy looks like he's hit the ground running. A work accident meant he missed last year's league and championship, but scored 10 points last week in a fairly easy win over Westmeath. 5 of those from play. Mark Rogers, is this going to be Mark Rogers' year? Scored 2-2 last week. We've been impressed by him anytime we've seen him the last couple of years. Wonder who'll pick him up from a Limerick point of view. Will Sean Finn be in there? That would be a lovely test for Rogers to see Kenny Hackett against Sean Finn if he's playing. Or maybe, could be Richie English, someone like that as well. Either way, players like that will really want to lay down a marker in this game and show that they're ready to be starting come championship time. Is there anything, do you think Keane Lynch would be risked at this time of the year in terms of starting? Got 20 minutes last week. They'll probably be looking to manage his load, but I wonder, is there any temptation to say, right, let's start him here and see how he'll go?
Yeah, it's a funny one. I still didn't think he was moving at 100% when I saw him last Saturday.
But that could be rustiness, that it could be a case that he's able to fully go, but he needs a bit of, he just needs a bit of road time now at this stage.
Yeah, potentially so. I tell you something, you have to admire him. Like if I was coming back from an injury or anything like that, I would definitely be staying under the radar. And he comes on the other night wearing white boots. Like, you have to love it. He's just, and sure, Hegarty was wearing, I think Cummins said you could see his boots from the moon, like they were that fucking bright. Like, it was mad. Like, it's just, they are definitely kind of their own men, shall we say. I would expect Keane Lynch to play the guts of a half on Saturday evening, and I think on home soil as well. I know Cork came down and gave them a bit of a scutcheon in the Gaelic Crowns last year. Whatever about Cork coming and doing that, they definitely won't be wanting Clare to come and do that anyway. And I'd expect, like, if Hannon is fit, he'd play the guts of an hour. Hegarty would probably step up to about an hour, I'd say, as well. And it's an unbelievable, Shane. It's like different lads and different pieces move in and out, but it's like the Morrisseys never move.
I was just going to say the same thing. Has Dan Morrissey ever missed a game ever?
No, they're unreal. Like Dan and Tom, and I was only, Niall Moore was saying this, they're a hand clubmate. He just said, if you saw Tom Morrissey playing at club level, whatever respect you have for him would just go even further through the roof. He just said he's impossible to handle at club level. And if anything, he raises himself another gear when he has the hand jersey on. But those boys start every game, from what I can see, and they seem to start and finish nearly every game as well.
Do you expect David McCarthy to start in goals again for Limerick? Like, if it's a case that, like, Nicky Quaid's the undisputed number one, but if it's a case that he somehow gets injured or whatever, they are going to want McCarthy to have had a bit of game time. And this game, if there's 20,000 there or whatever, and there'll be a bit of an atmosphere, it's probably a good time to try him out, isn't it?
Yeah, there was a high ball come in the first half the last day that he dropped, which you probably need to do. It's not the most glamorous catch, but that kind of the belly catch.
Gut trap.
Yeah, because when you're out here, you're quite weak. In here, maybe it doesn't look as good, and when you catch the ball, you've a lot more to do, shall we say, and you have to kind of lean in your body like that. But I'm sure he got away with it the other day, so he learned from that experience. I'd be like you. They kind of knew what they had with Barry Hennessy because he was there so long and so well drilled behind Quaid. Didn't play that many games, played the odd game, but they knew what they had if they need him. Whereas maybe now not as much, even though I know David McCarthy was on that under-21 team that Dermot Burns captained, where the vast majority of lads that are on the current generation have come through. But I think having a few games under his belt, having big games and pressurized games is huge. So wouldn't be a bit surprised if they had him in again this weekend.
Yeah, and one final thing that I'm wondering is, assuming Aaron Gallan isn't playing again, he doesn't seem to be there at the moment, who's going to play at the tip of the diamond? Who's going to be the closest to goal? It was Seamus Flanagan the last day. Now, he's done his very best work, probably being slightly outside Gallan or working very close to goal with Gallan. So who's paired up there closest to goal with him? That seems to be something that they're probably going to have to try and figure out in the next little while. And that's not an easy solution because there aren't too many that are nigh on unmarkable in there at times.
Yeah, it's a funny one. Again, I was looking back at the game and I just, like, Gallan is just the ultimate outball, isn't he? Like, if they're under pressure, put it in anyway. Like, how many? He's definitely gotten a couple of goals against G in Championship in particular, Shane, where it's just been, a big long ball in, not the most glamorous ball, and he times it so well. He doesn't engage in the contact for the high ball until the last second. You think he's not there, then all of a sudden he's there, and it's like he does it. It's like the Dan the Man move. He does it in one movement. He catches turns and scores all in one movement. They don't have, a player like that, and I don't think Flanagan is that type of player. And they didn't maybe put the ball into those Gallan type positions the last day against Cork as much as they normally would. So, if they are without him for a period of time, it's going to be interesting to see how they, like, what do they do? Do they not hit the ball in as much? Do they score from out the pitch? Do they try and run it more? That'll be fascinating because we've talked about, I think we had him, he end up number 2 on our power rankings. He's really a player that they can't do without. So it's going to be fascinating to see potentially over the next couple of games how they play in his absence. It seems to be absent at the moment anyway.
Yeah, imagine maybe Kyle Hayes did try it, but again, different type of player. There's not many Gallans out there. Don't mean to be dismissive, says Sean O'Sullivan, in probably dismissive tone, but Watford have leashed this week, so no harm losing Bennett and having some rotation. That's obviously to do with Stephen's red card. TV Street, I'd like to see Davy saying, we'll take that medicine if it was the first round of the championship. Not worth the paper to appeal, like Sean says. 'Tis only Laois. Harsh enough there from TV Street. Richard Hogan, game in Cork really only caught fire in the second half. This is against Limerick. Could be the same Saturday night by being a bit open in the first half, but probably get a better second half when the game's in the melting pot. Main thing about Laois is trying to not get anyone injured or carded again. Some of these lads are from Camross. Again, fairly sneery tone there from Sean. TV Street, do either Limerick or Clare really want to progress much further in the league, though? Kylie will start taking fellas off again to test the young fellas. So, yeah.
Well, they don't. Let's call it a spade, and this is, this is not good for competition. How many teams want to play in the league final?
Because it's too close to championship, maybe. Maybe if they had an extra week of a break or something like that, but sure, look, there aren't weeks to go around. So
Cork naturally have an extra week because they're not out the first weekend, so maybe it suits them. But like, you do have a situation, maybe coming into round 5 where teams that don't want to win a game. They don't want to end up in that position, because we kind of said it before, and it's the same with preseason competitions. Like, when you have official fixtures, you have to play them, you have to fulfill them, and you have to fulfill them to a good level. When you're not in that situation, you don't have to worry about it. And I think there'll be a couple of teams, Limerick in particular, that will just not want to be in a league final.
Yeah, this is to do with who would potentially step up if Aaron Gillan wasn't there. They tried Shane O'Brien in there. Obviously, he came off the bench the last day. Some tank of a man that he is, but very young to be asking a lad to go in there. And obviously not road tested at senior level just yet. Not to say that he won't get there in time. Richard Hogan, maybe if there wasn't any semi-finals, that might help. Maybe if they just finished it off with like whoever tops the league table gets the win, and then is also guaranteed that preliminary All-Ireland quarter-final spot instead of the Joe McDonagh